Fraction basics. Let's start with the basic information about fractions, because even though you've worked with fractions for several years, I don't think you really understand them very well. So, fractions are parts of a whole. So if you have one whole neon pizza, you can divide it into two parts. And then you have two halves. Isn't 2 over 2 the same as 1? Yes. How about 3 parts? 3/3. 3 over 3, that's 1. How about 4/4? 4 over 4, that is still 1. Now, when you take one of these halves away, then you only have 1/2. Your number changes. It's saying 1 out of the 2 pieces that make up one whole. If you take 1/3 away, you have 2/3 left. That's saying 2 pieces out of 3 pieces that make up the whole. How about, let's take away 1/4. That leaves us with 3/4, which means 3 pieces out of 4 that make up the whole. See, fractions are pieces that make up wholes. Fractions are equivalent if they're the same part of the whole. So, this fraction is 1/2. 1 because there's one part, half because it takes 2 parts to make the whole. This fraction is 2/4. We've got 2 parts. It takes 4 parts to make the whole. This fraction is 3/6. We have 3 parts. It takes 6 parts. Terrible drawings today. That's awful. Let me try again. It takes 6 parts. Good, that's better. To make the whole. This fraction is 4/8. We have 4 parts. It takes 8 parts to make the whole. All of these fractions are what we call equivalent, which is a fancy word for equal. That's equal to that, that's equal to that. Those are all equal because they're all the same part of the fraction. They're all the same part of the whole. Okay, if you wanted to, you could stack them on top of each other. You'd have the same part. Now, sometimes you have to make a fraction that's equivalent to another fraction. You might have 5/7, and the directions on your homework might say make an equivalent fraction or make 2 equivalent fractions. It's really easy. One way to do it is to take this number and multiply them by the same thing. Times 2 times 2. Well, that's 10. That's 14. Wouldn't 10 out of 14 be the same amount as 5 out of 7? If I had a circle with 7 pieces and I kept 5 of them, wouldn't that be the same as having a circle with 14 pieces and we kept 10 of them? Those are equivalent. Could you make another equivalent fraction? Sure. How about multiplying this by 2? That would be 20 over 28. That's the same thing. I could make equivalent fractions all day long. What about multiplying by a different number? Like 10. That's 50/70ths. Equivalent fractions. This and this and this and this are all really the same number. They're all equivalent. If you reduced them, you'd get 5/7, wouldn't you? That's one way to make equivalent fractions. Another way to make equivalent fractions is to divide instead of multiply. because this fraction is not all the way reduced. So could I divide it by 10? Sure. Then I'm going to get 5 over 10. Those are equivalent fractions. 50/100ths, 5 over 10. Could I divide it by 2? Of course. If I divide it by 2, I get 25 over 50, another equivalent fractions. If I reduce this all the way down and divided it by 50, what if I divide by 50? What am I going to get? Going to get 1 over 2, because that's 1/2. All those are the same amount. They're the same piece of the whole. That's what makes them equivalent fractions. Now, simplifying fractions. Most teachers call it reducing. Most books now say simplifying fractions. It means the same thing. If I'm going to reduce it, aren't I making it more simple? So, when I need to reduce this, I say what will go into both of them. If you don't know the biggest number that will go into both of them, that's okay. You could do this. You could say, well, I know 2 goes into both of them, so I'll divide both by 2. So that's 6/14. Oh, wait, 2 will go again, so divide that by 2. And you could get 3/7. Will anything go into 3 and 7? No, so that's all the way simplified. You could have divided them both by 4 to start with. That would have done the same thing. That would have given you the 3/7. Either way, it doesn't matter. Whatever's easier for you works. Reducing fractions. When you reduce this one, you're going to, I would probably divide by 8. Okay, so divide by 8, because both of those are multiples of 8, right? So that gives me 2/3, all the way reduced. Easy. Okay, changing from mixed numbers to improper and improper to mixed. So if you have a mixed number, 2 and 2/3, to change it to an improper fraction, you go 2 times 3 plus 2. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 2 is 8. That number goes on top. This number never changes. That's the number of parts, right? That doesn't change. 8/3. Okay? To go the other way, what if you have 16/5 and you need to make it proper? Well, how many times does 5 go into 16? 3 times. That's 15. So I just used up 15 parts. How many parts do I have left over? 1. And it goes over 5. The denominator does not change. It's all, whatever this is, that's it. Whatever this is, that's it. Now, it's your turn to practice. Follow the directions, work the problems, get your answers on a piece of paper, and when you get ready, turn the video back on. Pause the video now. Okay, here's the answers. Now, notice something. Number 1 has lots of right answers, because I could multiply the top and bottom by any number I wanted to get a new top and bottom. So these are just some of the right answers. You might have a different answer that's right. If you think you have a different answer that's right, write down the problem, write down your answer, and ask me in class tomorrow. Number 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, they only have one right answer. I hope you got them all right. Here's your video homework. Remember to show all your work. Remember your title line, your name, the date. Bring it to class tomorrow, and have a wonderful evening. Good night.